I did not intend to come unannounced. That is the first thing people misunderstand when I tell this story. They assume I arrived like a storm-angry, suspicious, ready to accuse. The truth is quieter and far more shameful. I came because I was tired of worrying and tired of being told that worry itself was my flaw. For years, I had learned to silence that inner alarm. Mothers of grown sons are expected to be supportive, not intrusive, generous, not demanding, proud, not perceptive. I had trained myself well. Still, on that morning, as I stood in my kitchen staring at a phone that hadn't rung in days, something in me refused to cooperate. I am 63 years old. I built my life on discipline and deferred emotion. I ran a mid-sized logistics company for 3 decades, raised a child mostly alone after a quiet, unglamorous divorce, and replaced presence with provision more often than I like to admit. My love language was stability, roofs, tuition, reliable cars. I believed if I removed hardship, character would take care of itself. That belief raised my son. When Sterling stopped answering my calls, I told myself he was busy. When his wife, Vada, replied less and less, I assumed newlyweds eventually retreat into their own world. When I noticed her voice thinning during our last conversation, hesitant, apologetic, overly careful, I explained it away as stress. I had become very good at explanations. Still, I booked the flight. At the airport, I felt out of place among families, reuniting with laughter and balloons. I carried one bag. Inside were jars of preserves I used to make when Sterling was small. Back when he still ran to the door when I came home, instead of texting that he'd call later. I also carried a small stuffed bear, bought without thought, the kind of thing you bring when you don't know what comfort should look like anymore. The city where my son lived felt heavier than home. The air pressed against my skin. My phone remained silent. I told myself not to jump to conclusions. I had bought the apartment he lived in with Vada 3 years earlier, shortly after their wedding. It was my idea. I framed it as a gift. But in truth, it was an apology one. I had never spoken aloud. I had missed too many school events, too many evenings. Money was how I made amends. The building was quiet when I arrived. The hallway smelled faintly of disinfectant and old carpet. Their door was slightly ajar. I paused before pushing it open, aware that this was the moment when denial could still save me. Once inside, there would be no pretending. The apartment did not look lived in. It looked abandoned in stages. Shoes by the door, one tipped over. Plates stacked in the sink with food hardened onto them. Bottles lined the counter like evidence. Mail unopened. Final notices visible without being read. And on the dining table, medication. Still sealed. Prescribed, bought a months earlier. The neighbor who spoke to me did not lower her voice out of courtesy. She lowered it out of discomfort. She was taken by ambulance, she said, couple days ago. Didn't look good. I thanked her like someone receiving directions. The hospital was close, the ICU closer than I expected. Doctors speak differently when they think you already know. They skip reassurances. They give facts shaped like edges. Advanced pneumonia, severe dehydration, prolonged fever, days without care. She was alone. The doctor said. I stood beside Vada's bed and felt something unfamiliar. Guilt that had nowhere to hide. She looked fragile in a way that suggested erosion, not accident. This was not sudden illness. This was neglect with a long memory. I left the room because my legs no longer felt reliable. Outside, traffic moved with indifferent rhythm. People passed me carrying food, laughing, arguing about nothing important. Then the car appeared. The SUV I had bought Sterling for his birthday purchase. I'd justified as practical, safe, responsible, came roaring down the street. Music loud, windows open, 2 young women laughing beside him. He did not look toward the hospital. Minutes later, my phone vibrated. A message from him.com, reassuring, false. That was when I understood something fundamental. My son was not avoiding responsibility by accident. He was practicing it. I sat back down in the hospital lobby and let my mind do what it does best when emotion fails. Review evidence. The car was registered in my name. I had insisted, citing insurance costs. Sterling had rolled his eyes and joked about my lack of trust. I called the police. The operator's voice was neutral. Practiced. Can you describe the vehicle? Yes. Do you know the driver? There was a pause, not for drama, for decision. I do not, I said. As I gave details, I waited for something inside me to object. A surge of maternal panic, a voice reminding me that this was my child. Nothing came. 2 days later, he was released. By then, I had already met with my lawyer. By then, I had already reread my own financial records with a different lens. Every check I had written, every bill I had paid, every silence I had maintained to avoid conflict. I had not raised a monster, but I had fed one. When Sterling came to me, he did not ask about his wife. He asked about the car. He knelt because kneeling had worked when he was 7, because apology had always been a transaction. For a moment, just a moment, I felt the old reflex, the urge to fix, to smooth, to reverse time. Then I remembered Vata's unopened medicine. I told him the apartment now belonged to his wife, told him the car was gone. I told him I would not intervene again. He called me cruel. I let him. Recovery is not a straight line. Vata did not wake up grateful and whole. She woke up afraid. She flinched at footsteps. She apologized for existing. She cried when asked what she wanted. It took months before she believed silence could mean safety. I stayed nearby, not hovering, not rescuing. I learned restraint late in life, but I learned it honestly. Sterling called once more, then stopped. The last time I saw him was not dramatic. No confrontation, no shouting. He was working at a car wash. He looked older, not punished aware. We did not speak. Some lessons do not require closure. If you are listening to this story now, somewhere far from where it began, remember this: love that refuses accountability is not mercy, it is permission. And if this story found you, I would like to know which country are you listening from. God bless.